Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at episode 25 of The Hopenning. The Hopenning is a wonderful place where hope is happening. My name is Marina, and my co-host is the lovely Fran. Fran and I are both rapid transformational therapy practitioners, and I'm doing this full-time. Fran is doing it part-time as she is a 33-year veteran teacher of elementary school age kids in High Prairie. I got it right today, in Northern Alberta, Canada, where she just told us she ran through a blizzard this morning. And I am a full-time practitioner. My background is in music. I am a singer, been singing all my life, and that is kind of what keeps me sane, I hope. And then I am a resident of the beautiful British Columbia. However, right now I'm talking to you from Calgary. So we have a very lovely guest with us today, and we are so excited to introduce you to Nicole. So Fran, please go ahead.
So welcome everyone, and we have an amazing guest with amazing information for you today. Her name is Nicole Sorochan. Nicole is an award-winning director who is passionate about reinventing entertainment through storyworld building and cross-platform experiences. She specializes in hybrid genres while focusing her work on creating impact for global audiences. Nicole's most recent cross-platform project, Amplify Her, was created with 30 women working in collaboration together. It includes a feature documentary film, graphic novel, animated series, behind-the-scenes web series, and exclusive event series that has reached over 100 markets. Nicole has launched Hidden Bands, and she also is a founding partner of Deep Well DTX, a video game developer and publisher dedicated to making games that are simultaneously world-class entertainment as well as therapeutic for a myriad of health concerns. So Nicole is the director and the filmmaker on Amplify Her, and that's how I found Nicole, through TED. So Nicole was a TEDx speaker, and she spoke about Amplify Her, and it really spoke to my heart because of the way that Nicole, in her work, is also helping women to heal from past trauma, childhood trauma, whatever it might be that's keeping women in a place that's not reaching their full potential. And so since 2007, Nicole has co-owned OneNet Incorporated, a high-profile creative and marketing agency based in Victoria, BC. She has worked with companies like Google, Lenovo, Apple Lovin, and Steel Theories. We are so happy to have you here, Nicole. So this is the month of May. And for the month of May, Marina and I have been focusing on women and women's issues. And we thought that you would be perfect to talk about how your work with Amplify Her has helped in helping other women heal. So Marina and I, when you're ready, we would like to show the video that you produced as the trailer to all the work that you did with Amplify Her.
That sounds lovely. Thanks so much for having me.
Nicole, before we play the video, I love that TED Talk that you had. So tell us how you got into that. Tell us a little bit of a synopsis of what you said in the TED Talk. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, so I think, I don't know, when it comes to projects, they say that you know that it's really transformed you when you do a TED Talk about it. And I think for me, that's very much the case with Amplify Her. So what's kind of interesting when I started that project was I actually didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do the subject matter. It was a film. I've done a lot of war documentaries and a lot of very, I did a film about the Occupy movement, so very political based. But one of the collaborators I'd worked on with the project had come to me with this film about women DJs. And at the time, I think I was caught up in my own sort of experiences with trying to be this sole woman in a position in technology and in film, that there was almost an attitude as to, why do I want to cover this? You know, if I can do it, so can they. And what's kind of interesting is that was actually really true for a lot of the people we ended up working with on the project. But the part that sparked the interest for me was when my collaborating partner, Ian McKenzie, said, that's not really the story I want to tell. I want to tell the story of what is unique about feminine expression. And at the time, I had pushed so much of my own identity as a woman aside to, you know, chase my dreams in film and in business, that I felt like it was a challenge for myself to do some self-reflection on myself as a woman. And with relationships, I knew in this project I was going to be working with a lot of women, so it was time for me to actually, you know, dig out my own blockers on that and really break through some barriers. And finally on that, I just really didn't understand what feminine expression was at the time. And so I felt like it was a good challenge for me to be taking on. Yes.
Excellent. So let's share the screen and then go into the video.
At first I thought it was a comic, which it kind of is.
I was like, cool, somebody's gonna draw me.
Then Nicole started talking about animating it, and then I thought it was a cartoon, which it is, but it's not. It's both of the things.
I feel like the violin is my voice.
I always thought a woman's voice should be heard. It's not screaming and shouting feminism. It's taking it from a different angle.
I've been wanting to work on a motion comic actually for a long time. Like there's nothing that's a no about this project.
As I've been opening up to collaboration with the team, it's just been this really powerful coming together of emotional resonance and then creating story from there.
It was difficult to accept the stories and the way that they deviate from the usual hero's journey, because it becomes about owning vulnerability, which is something we never see.
People can only see one part. Why isn't that just so obvious to everyone, that everyone is all of these things, that women are all of these things, that people are so much more than what we just see?
What does the true feminine look like if given the chance to express itself? And for us, we thought the answer was everything. It looks like everything.
I want to see the hero's journey change to something where we are not erasing what's happened to us. We are not erasing our wounds, but we are embracing them.
Amazing.
Incredible. The first time I saw that trailer, I thought, oh my God, this woman is Canadian. You are Canadian, and you produced, I'm getting goosebumps now, because you produced something that was so relevant, so multi-ethnic and multicultural, so beautifully creative, like just so intensely beautiful. The animations are beautiful. The women are just so beautiful, that not just physically beautiful, but just in their feminine beauty. And you had mentioned something really interesting just before we got on the show about exploring your own, exploring who you are as a woman yourself. Like Marina and I, we're both mothers, and we're, you know, we slotted into this. I did, especially. I slotted into a role, a box, because that's what was generational for me, you know, just become a wife and a mother. And, you know, I took on a very typical occupation for women. And you really didn't. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background, your movement into filmmaking, and how that created the woman you are. Like on the show, they talk about true femininity being everything. So can you tell us a little bit about your true femininity?
Yeah, certainly. So where I started off as a filmmaker, it's kind of an interesting story, and I know we're going to tie back into this later on. So I think it's a nice little kernel. But so for me, at an early age, I had picked up a camera. My mom was a drama teacher, and she had access to all this film gear that normally at that time people wouldn't have access to, and I fell into it. So at any point in time, it was one of those big VHS sort of camcorder things that were super heavy. I would always sort of go back and make film projects about anything I could possibly do all throughout, all throughout growing up. And a bit of a tangent, but I ended up also playing professional volleyball overseas and had this whole other life. Eventually ended up in an injury, and also sort of studying completely different things. And then there was just this moment where I kind of reconnected to who I was as a kid and realized that one of the things that I was always passionate about and never sort of strayed from was film. And so at the time I was actually trying to enter a world of like international politics towards the end of my university career, and all the doors kept on closing. But I picked up a camera and doors kept on opening. And so for me, it was sort of this pathway into really finding my true calling. I started off filming war documentaries all throughout the world. I shot a film in southern Thailand just out of university that took 7 years and was quite chaotic. I also was one of the first streaming, sort of online streaming / on broadcast television. It was a service called Current Television, which was ran by Al Gore back in the day. So I ended up producing a whole bunch of, I would pitch my own projects, decide what I wanted to cover, and then I would fly to different parts of the world and I would do all the directing, editing, putting all of the stories together myself. So that was definitely my entry point into film. And there's definitely been moments in my life where I'm also, drawn to technology. I'm drawn to a couple other things, but I always tend to come back to storytelling and finding ways to, I think, take a story and make it transcend platforms. So I like when a film also has other moments or other places where we can live and experience it. And so whenever I step back and like be my authentic self, I'll find myself building another big story world. And so Amplify Her was definitely one of those, for sure.
Okay, so Nicole, I'm very curious about, there's so much involved in Amplify Her, and you were telling us a little bit before we started recording. And we talked about a little clip that I have on Masquerade. And as we are all about giving hope to people, and for people to become their true authentic selves, that really spoke to me. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
You just in terms of like how the project was set up or how I built it out, is that what you're looking for?
Yes, anything that you're an absolute expert on that. So it's just fascinating for us to sit on this end and watch the final product. And you mentioned before the time that each of your stories is based on a true story. So
the way that this project, the motion comic and the graphic novel part was part that really grabbed me, because again, while I love making film, I also like taking it outside of film. And so when we first started interviewing various different women music producers, we started to see that there was almost like an alter ego with them. So they were themselves in one case, and then they were completely these amazing, beautiful, all had very different types of femininity on stage. And so when I started to think about how to take that across to another medium, we immediately thought about graphic novels. So how could we show this amazing story that is almost hyper fantasticized, my own made up word, but of a woman, in this case, a music producer, telling us some of the most vulnerable moments that helped shape who they became, and who they wanted to be on stage, and essentially trying to find the deepest wound that they had in their professional career, and how they took that wound and then turned it into a strength. And so as that was from the women's music producers side. And so what I wanted to do after that was really bring a team of women together in industries where women generally are few and far between. And so I went and it was I think I had like 6 weeks to get everybody together once my funding was approved for the project, to go from, you know, sourcing, working with some of the women that we had worked with already in the film, and then finding talented illustrators and animators to work on the project. So within about 6 weeks, I was able to go and find a whole bunch of interesting comic book artists that were women, and motion designers or animators that were women, that all had their sort of their own unique styles, and then match them together into groups of 3. So there was a music producer, a comic book writer, illustrator, and then a motion comics artist. And then together they were to work with the music producer to talk about an authentic story that she had, and of course with other inputs with the other women, and then turn it into a story that could then be, you know, hyper fantasticized, or like add an element of fantasy or whatever on top of it. So they really got to step out of, you know, just reality and into this sort of new super world, so to speak, and transform their stories into something really special. What was interesting about that, so much from a women's lens, was just so many of those women had never, the workshop happened in 2015. So many of those women had never yet been able to be put into a situation where they were collaborating with other women before. So there was this moment where there was like 30 of us gathered. I brought them all to an island, Galiano, between Vancouver and Victoria, all from all over North America, and one even from France, where we kind of sat back and looked at each other. And there was just this real moment of hesitation, like, what did I just get myself into? But by putting everyone into a comfortable setting, into nature, and really allowing people to each show up with something they had to offer, so a talent that they were clearly a professional at, and then ask them to work together, we were able to break down a lot of competitive barriers and other things that would be present in society, and doing it in sort of a beautiful place.
You were talking in TED Talk, in your TED Talk, you were referring to an incident in high school, where you were bullied, and from there you gravitated away from girls. You preferred to hang out with males. So tell us a little bit more about that, and kind of the beautiful coming together of everything to just work with women in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I think it's a similar story that many women hold. Unfortunately, I think a lot of us go through bullying, but there was definitely a moment in junior high school, and then again in high school. But the junior high one was interesting because I feel like there was like an inner circle of girls, and every week there was a new girl that would then get bullied, to the point where, honestly, and sometimes, you know, people would be, I think there was even a suicide at the time as well. And it just, it's vicious and it's unnecessary, and it creates this sort of competitiveness that lives in you as you grow up. I think in university, I also ended up gravitating to having more male friends because it was just easier for me. It was comfortable. I was athletic. I had sort of a tomboy side, so I could easily connect with a lot of men as friends. And there's this funny joke about one of my guy friends, where anytime, you know, they brought a girlfriend home, the way that they would sort of introduce me is, "This is Nicole, the girl you're so gonna hate," because there was always this sort of competitive nature with me. Wherever I went, it just seemed to follow me. And even so much so that when I started hiring people for my own company, and this is like, you know, this is some self-ownership and responsibility, but there were definitely moments where, you know, a woman would come in and to interview, and I would think in my head, you know, is she going to leave because she wants to have a family, or is she going to be able to cut it, or, you know, all of those sort of preconceived competitiveness and a lot of societal, I think, tropes that I would immediately place on the interview subject. And so what I found is, when I initially started my company, I surrounded myself with men. There was only one other woman in the company. But through the process of working through Amplify Her and actually seeing what happens, you know, when you lift each other up, when you avoid competition, when you look towards collaboration, you place a value on each other's different skills, you learn how to communicate and connect into new ways. my company now is completely, 180. And so there is, I think, probably 65% of the people that I now employ are women. So that was a big self-transformation. And it all started with having those 30 women staring back at me, everyone feeling awkward on the retreat. I had this vision. I just went into creator mode and put everyone together. But I didn't think about what it was going to feel like to go from having no women around me to then working with this sort of group of 30 women on the island. And the first thing I did was just own that. And I think immediately when I was able to say, like, this is how it's been for me, you could see the tension and the anxiety in the room just drop. And all of a sudden everyone's like, okay, so this isn't just me. This is happening for other women, and I don't have to be nervous. This is a place and a journey that we're going to explore together.
Amazing.
Yeah. Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
So let's switch to that clip, right? Yes.
They do.
I know you were going to ask that. Fran and I are starting to finish each other's sentences by now.
Let them believe it. They wanted me to wear their faces. They wanted validation. I wanted that too. I can't give anymore. This is not me. Ugh, so damn arrogant. How could I treat them that way? How could I treat myself that way? These masks are projection, but they're also protection, guardians even. Each is a facet of me, each with a sacred purpose. But often, taking them off is easier said than done.
Applecat, on in 10 minutes.
Okay. At what point did I feel so unsafe? What is safety anyhow? Oh, you. Yeah. The first mask. The broken warrior. A guardian birthed, critically premature. Yeah, I remember you.
Get out! I can't do this anymore!
You're a broken record! I'm already gone!
Don't touch me!
It's always been the same. Out of all the people that hurt her, she insists on hurting herself the most. Not again. I can't let her do it again. I will be strong for those who can't. A warrior.
Mama? Mama?
Chloe, sorry, you startled me.
Why are you wearing that mask? It's silly.
I always wear them. But you're right. I don't need them, do I?
You know, every time I watch that video, I just feel it all, right? I feel everything in there. The chaos in that house, like the door slamming, the man saying, "I'm out of here," and then the little girl trying so hard to make her mommy feel better, and throwing the knives in the toilet as though that'll help. I just feel that so much. I mean, I don't know. I just deeply connect with that video, and the masking, all of that masking stuff. That women, doesn't matter how old you are, you wear a mask because you gotta pretend that everything's okay. Behind there, inside, you gotta put that mask on and just be on. You got to be on. So no matter what your job is, or you got to be ready. You got to be doing it. And inside, there's all these little pieces of you that are broken. Nicole, like when you watched this stuff, when you saw this going on, like the collaboration and the work that was going on between the women, the scripting, the animation, and all of that, how was that for you?
I mean, for me, it's so important for me when I'm creating to think about, what is the impact that I want my work to have in the world. And for me, I think, so the end of the journey is super important to me. The process is beautiful, but what is it that we're going to create, and how is it going to help shift people in the world? And for me, it's all about thinking about like the end, whoever was reading it, and just being able to see the fact that your reaction, is very emotional, and you understand it, and there's a connection to it. I mean, for me, that's definitely the most exciting part. And it means that like all of the work that it took to get those stories to where they're at, it's definitely worth it, I think. And watching the women go through that process and just being able to open up, to be able to talk about these things with other women, and with women who are there to support each other, to identify, to say, hey, actually that happened to me too, or I have a similar story, created this emotional, resonance, and just became something that we can all kind of return to in our lives as this big impactful moment where we kind of felt for the first time, deeply supported by each other, which I think there isn't enough of for women. So, and I think the one of the other things that I felt like was a super powerful moment at the retreat was when we actually body painted the women into their characters. And so as they transformed into these characters, we actually got to create them and paint them in these animated, visions that everyone was creating for them. And that was transcendent for many of the women, because there's both the masks that protect us, or that we're trying to hide, or that we're trying to take off. And then there's also sort of the projections of who we want to be, like what is it authentically that we're connecting to, that we're trying to manifest. And I think both of them play a very interesting role, played a very interesting role in this project. So being able to wipe off and face and confront the things we needed to confront, and then also being able to create new stories, new versions of what it looks like to be a strong, powerful woman in the world. We're not afraid of vulnerability. We're not afraid to like putting ourselves forward. We're not afraid of showcasing a type of femininity that maybe isn't traditional. All of that became very important too.
To me, it's all the embodiment of a transformation, coming from a place of hurt, where you put a mask on out of hurt, and then growing into, I want to say, the goddess that you are supposed to be. It's your dharma. And to me, that's what I absolutely love about watching that. It's going from that place of pain to the freedom to be who you really are. What can you feel? And even if that means put that body paint on, let's say, that actually helps you to grow your wings. So that's what I absolutely love about that.
Yeah. And each time we are vulnerable, and it's so hard to be vulnerable, because when you were that junior high student, right, or Marina or me, whoever, you couldn't be vulnerable, because if you were vulnerable, you were a target. And that's just the way it is. I mean, that's life, I guess, because as soon as you show your belly, you're a target. And we grow up that way, right? We grow up believing we cannot be vulnerable. We cannot share the secrets, the dark secrets, or else, we're going to be sorry for that. And just the fact that you got all those women together, I mean, that's huge. 30 women, all with a history, all with brokenness inside, all with a past that sometimes is not in the best interest of saying out loud, is profound. And I, as we speak, I just wish there was a way that me as a teacher can help my students just to try to be more vulnerable. I mean, I do try in my own way, but I know there's just so much. Kids are carrying so much, like that little girl, like the little girl in your video. Kids carry so much pain of what is happening within the household. So I thank you. I thank you for doing that for women.
Thank you so much. There was a moment definitely where, as you know, as the person who's trying to put everything together, wanting to see people's sort of walls break down. So there's two interesting moments. One was one of the older music producers, she had her sunglasses on, and then there was a moment where she finally took them off, and I'm like, okay, you're here, you're showing up. And there was another really interesting exercise we did, because in order to get people to feel comfortable, it was work. So I actually had architected a whole journey day by day by day. We didn't just get in and start talking about our stories, but we started with identifying, for instance, different female tropes in storytelling. We identified them together as a group, and then I paired different groups of women out, and then we learned to discard those tropes and say, like, well, what does a new version of a story, you know, for women? I mean, we're women here together. Let's create some new ideas as to what these stories could be. We did a lot of like we did a silent walk where we could sort of reflect on things. And then one really powerful moment was the Samoan circle that we did, where it's, you can see a shot in the opening with the drone where all the women are sort of sitting in a circle on the beach. And so the exercise there was, essentially the idea is it's an ongoing conversation. So you start the kernel with a question, and you pose it to the group, and there's 4 people in the center, and when they feel complete, they leave the circle, and somebody else who wants to jump in will move into that particular seat. And so everybody's there listening and taking part when they want to, when they feel comfortable, and then leaving the conversation open for other people to jump in. And so we did that for a while, and there was a moment where one of the director of photography, a really amazing female camera woman, put her camera down because she had something to say, and she actually jumped in the center of the circle. So it was just this feeling of a relief to see and to be able to create the sort of container where we could break down and you know, any barriers, where we could finally be vulnerable. And this was all pre-Me Too as well. So this idea of like connecting trauma was still something that I think was very much, you know, happening behind, like, where most of us didn't know that our situations were similar to other women in the circle. So that was quite profound as well, because we hide a lot, right? As women, we carry a lot and we hide a lot.
And we almost have that expectation of the class coming out, and in that situation, from the vulnerability, realizing that actually we are pretty much all the same.
Yeah, we share a lot of the same stories. We sure do.
Yeah. So sorry, Fran, your turn.
So Marina and I, we work with women and men, but predominantly women for me, and we help them to reach their wounded child, right? Through the work that we do, we help them reach their wounded child, and help them to heal the wounded child within, so that they don't continue to be, to let that continue to not allow them to reach their highest potential. How do you think, in your words, how does rapid transformational therapy, what Marina and I do, how could we, like in your words, how does that help? You know, what words of advice would you have, or how is this parallel to what you do?
I mean, ultimately, you know, the whole process of what we did with Amplify Her was allowing women to sort of confront, identify, and then heal, you know, those moments in their life that had been blocking them into feeling confident or empowered in what they were, you know, in who they wanted to become in the world. And I think, I don't know, for me, storytelling is so powerful, you know, and just being able to create the context or create a situation where people feel safe and comfortable to be free to express themselves, I think is super valuable. And I mean, yeah, I don't know, like further down in my work where I'm at right now is actually working with video games to do similar things. So just finding ways where people are actually feel safe and feel empowered to allow themselves to essentially heal. So I think like any way that we can, I think when we bottle things up and we don't address them, or we try to erase those moments, it can really affect us in a negative way, and it can hang on to you, and it can affect every move, you know, you make. Like for me, if I wouldn't have said yes to the project, if I wouldn't have said yes, I want to look at myself in the mirror, because I know as a documentary filmmaker, when you're out in the world and you're asking questions and you're getting deep into subject matter, you know, you're confronting it head on. And so doing a topic that was around, you know, women empowerment essentially meant that I needed to put a mirror up and start looking at myself and where, you know, things fell apart for me. And so any way that you can offer that mirror and help create, you know, an interesting context for people to really dig deep and confront that and move on and see how that wound has shaped a certain part, but it can actually turn into a gift. It can be something beautiful that blossoms into who you really should be in the world. Then I think it's super powerful, and I just commend you for doing this deep work, because I think it's so valuable and important.
So how did that change you, confronting that, looking in that mirror, how, looking back now, how did that grow you?
Yeah, I mean, I now have better relationships with most women in my life. You know, I had a rocky relationship with my mom, which I've, you know, actually, interestingly enough, she's an educator, and we actually put an education guide together around this project. So yeah, we got to like put our talents together and put some differences aside and actually work together on the project, which was quite interesting as well. And like I said before, in my company, I mean, now I think very differently when I go to hire. I try incredibly hard in every facet to take time to work with other women, to try and open doors. If I see a door closed, I want to try and open it. There's also this idea of, you know, in the corporate world, this Smurfette syndrome, right? Where there's like only one woman, and then you get kind of very empowered to be that only woman at the top. But and that'll continue to perpetuate the same problem that we have. So all of a sudden going like, hey, there's one of us here, now we need 5, or, you know, that person's voice wasn't heard in a boardroom. And I know what they said is very valuable. So I'm just going to make sure there's space and, you know, repeat what that person has said. So just in everything that I do, I'm just more conscious about myself and how I'm supporting other women in every way, in business, in my personal relationships, in my family relationships, all throughout. So it's been very transformational, and I'm a lot happier because of it. You know, you don't want to hang on to that negativity. And I think there's a longingness of belonging, you know, especially with your own your own, you know, with women. If you don't have good relationships or deep relationships with different women in your life, there's an emptiness that needs to be filled. And the longer you let it churn, you know, the more bitter, like, things sort of, you know, they manifest, right? And in interesting ways. And so I'm so happy that I was able to do that for myself. Yeah.
Well, absolutely amazing, Nicole. So just to make sure that our audience can connect with you, I would like for you to tell us, how can we see your work? Where can we see it? And whatever means you have for us to connect with you.
Yeah, so the best way to connect with myself and the Amplify Her project is going to the website, and all of those motion comics are actually available for free on the motion comics tab. You can watch the clips, and then also the really powerful behind the scenes material. That's at amplifyher.com. If you want to connect with me or the Amplify Her project directly, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. You can also just reach out to the Amplify Her email address, which is amplifyherfilm@gmail.com, and say hello and let us know. And in terms of supporting our work, the work, so putting together a project like Amplify Her that took 7 years to create was a big, I mean, there's a whole other journey on how we actually got everything made. And so of course, purchasing any of the work is very supportive. There's a watch the film tab where you can go ahead and watch the film. The best way for us to get paid right now is through Vimeo. So if you do want to support us to the best percentage split, please watch the films on Vimeo, which definitely helps out. And if you want a graphic novel, we no longer have them for sale online. So just reach out to me again at amplifyherfilm@gmail.com and we can definitely ship one out to you. They're quite powerful and beautiful. And also to my lovely hosts, I'd love to send you guys a couple copies as well so that you can give them out and hold on to them. So definitely.
That's very, very gracious. Thank you.
And you'll sign them?
I'll sign them, yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
I also saw here that you've got women's content streamed on a TV show, on a TV station, WIFF TV.
Yeah, so there's a new channel that is actually supporting our work as well. So the motion comics are up there. I'm also doing a podcast with them on June 21st, so International Music Day. We'll be joined with Samantha Blontron and myself talking about the projects as well. It's WIFF TV and it's all women's content, which is incredible. It's a streaming service, so there is a streaming fee, but their splits are also incredibly generous. A lot better than the penny per hour that we get paid on Amazon. So you definitely look to support. There's so many powerful stories on that platform, and they're only continuing to grow it.
And Blontron is amazing too. Like I loved it all. You know, I loved them all, but Blontron and some of them just really spoke to me.
Then we've done our job. Our goal was to make sure that everything spoke and gave you different stories you haven't heard before, just really, you know, where you can connect to them because they are real stories of women. And sometimes I feel like we're starting to do better now, but there's a lot of missed opportunity for stories that are around real women that we can all relate to that help inspire us and grow us.
Fantastic. So make sure you go to all those resources. We will have links for you in the comment section or description section of this video. So please go and support Nicole and all the wonderful work that she's doing. And amplify her. That's a wonderful project. And everything else that comes up in the future for you, Nicole. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here with us today and teaching us and just helping us to spread the word of hope. Really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Okay, so next week is week 26 for us, and Fran and I decided to celebrate. And over the last 6 months, we have weekly discussed so many amazing topics, some hard ones. And we want to recap. We want to go back, revisit some of those and just talk about it. And we would love for you guys who've been following us on Facebook and YouTube to kind of pop us a note in the next couple of weeks and tell us what this meant to you. And we would love to talk a little bit more about that. So we will see you next time.
Thank you, Nicole.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.